Welcome back. You're tuned into Bazaar Morning Call and hope you're having a good morning. Well, Prakash Diwan joins us to help us out with some fundamental analysis. Hi, Prakash. Good morning and good to see you in as always. Let's start off with the resignations first, both on Wipro as well as on Bandhan. We have the top executives that have resigned, and the street could read it negatively. For Bandhan, the stock has moved into the F&O ban ahead of this big update. So it'll be interesting to see how the stock moves. But your take on both these two stocks?
Good morning, Nigel. So I think to begin with, Bandhan Bank is where the damage is going to be possibly much more deeper, and it'll take a while to kind of repair that. The reason being, you have a founder who's been actually executing and living up to the strategy that the bank has always been following. And if somebody were to leave, without a plan to put in, the succession in place, it's definitely worrisome, because transitions take time. Competitive intensity is so severe in some of these pockets where Bandhan Bank operates. It's not going to be easy for them to be able to continue with that kind of a growth. And the growth we've seen how growth has been challenged in the last couple of quarters. So there is an issue out there till they announce who's going to take it up. And, we could attribute this to different reasons. It could possibly because of some sort of an anticipation that the renewal application to the RBI might not have been as easy to go through, or, we really don't know. So there could be much more second order effects from this. On the Wipro exit, I think it's really, if you ask me, it's not something which will be very impactful. Of course, change always takes time to get over, but the fact that they've found somebody from within the setup to take the lead is a very good sign. They need that, who could, take forward the culture that's been set for so many years. The outgoing leadership was also very instrumental in changing tracks for the business, and it's done well. But probably it's outlived its utility in that sense. That strategy, not the person. The strategy has outlived its purpose. So there could be some sort of a respite in getting into the mainstream go-to-market strategy, which an insider can execute much more effectively. So I would believe that will be an opportunity to look at. Remember when Henry Tripathi came in, it was absolutely, the stock rallied so hard in 2020, I guess. But this is something where it could actually turn out to be positive. So I wouldn't look at it so negatively. But yes, Bandhan is definitely something which we'll have to wait to see how things pan out after this exit.
The only problem with Wipro, I think, is it has underperformed its peers for quite a while, right? And the CEO or top management churn is something that is never good for the stock or the street, or shareholders rather. Prakash, hi, good morning. Lots of stocks in focus. You have TCS coming out with its numbers on Friday. Ahead of the earnings, how are you looking at IT stocks, and particularly on TCS? What's your call?
Good morning, Sonia. So I think IT will probably go into earnings starting with the TCS numbers later this week with very low expectations. So if there's and the single biggest parameter metric that I would probably look at is the new recruitment strategy that most of these larger players adopt. If their headcount is something which starts kind of looking like stabilizing or moving up, the street will start reading a lot of positivity into those numbers. All these while we've seen that's been the biggest impact, and we've seen the numbers also kind of corroborate to that reduction in headcount for the last 3 quarters in most of these names. So TCS could do that. The other thing is, while AI and all is getting to take center stage in terms of discussion globally, there's enough business and more if things were to revive in the US, the kind of manufacturing activity that's kind of coming back after a long gap. There could be a lot of new contract wins which will be very profitable for them and very long term. The contracts could go for the next 3-5 years, and then we recently saw the BMW tie-up with Tata Tech. If that kind of thing is happening in the larger companies, I think there'll be a very significant re-rating. So they're not going into earnings with very high expectation in any case, right? So that's what I'm reading into the IT pack, and of course barring a couple of bad news flows from Infosys last week and all. Other than that, the extension numbers were the only thing that actually toned down expectation, and which is good when you go into earnings season. So earnings season could probably surprise us pleasantly, mildly, if not very majorly.
Prakash, hi, morning. What about this news flow around Indiabulls real estate? Relative to its market cap, it's a very large amount of money which is being put in. Some marquee names, etc., coming in. Real estate as a space has been doing well, but this is a company, of course, which has been which, I mean, if it gets a start, it's like a fresh start. I mean, you know, if this is a change in direction. So just your thoughts on this transaction, and if you would consider this as a fresh start and a change in direction.
Good morning, Prashant. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a name that's tested patience from the sub 50, 60 levels for the last year plus, precisely because, you know, the transition to the new ownership, new management has actually been very patchy. In fact, it's been in a gray zone for almost these 2 years where nobody knew what was happening there, or what could possibly happen there. On paper, things look very promising given their land bank, given their presence and all of that. But the Chandigarh court is still not kind of given its decree in terms of the NCLT. You know, you keep on seeing newer dates come through. Even right now, as we speak, it's actually still pending. But this fundraise possibly tells you that there seems to be some sort of a closure that the management would be anticipating. They would have received some sort of an indication that they're in that phase where things could turn around on the legal side. And you know, the money that could have come in from private equity players which have backed Embassy is probably being replaced by this particular fundraise. And that's the reason why you see the quantum to be so significant, because it was always anticipated that they would need a fresh infusion of funds to be able to execute a lot of those land banks and convert them into sellable inventory. If they do that with speed, which means the next couple of years, you keep on seeing rollouts of finished products, then there is definitely a re-rating that could be justified. But at this point in time, all the good news potentially, in my view, is probably priced. This just kind of takes one overhang of sorts out in terms of where the funds are going to come from. So, and of course, the pricing is important, that it's come at a fairly decent valuation. Given where things stand, it's more forward-looking than in on a TTM basis. It's definitely something which does restore some sort of a confidence, but execution is going to be the challenge once this money comes.
Prakash, I wanted to ask you about Voltas and Blue Star. You know, it's very, very hot here in Mumbai, and I'm sure if you're still in Goa, it must be very hot. I was there in March and I couldn't bear it at that point of time. But the reason I'm asking you about both these two stocks is because Voltas came out with their operational update and it looks spectacular. Right. Both these two stocks, though, are at 52-week highs. Your view?
Absolutely, Nigel, I agree. There is no way this heat wave can probably be, overcome without the use of air conditioning in most of the homes. And the numbers that Voltas is reported in its note, I think they're staggering. What it tells you is that there is so much of growth, headroom for growth for most of these players. And still, if you recollect the last week's meet where Mr. Manish Chokhani was mentioning about air conditioning, sales in the passing, he's compared it with China, and we are still nowhere close to that kind of penetration. So very comfortably tells you there's a great TAM that's available, the market, addressable market. But interestingly, what Voltas has done, and I'll give you this insight because we met up with some players who supply, who are outsourced these manufacturing, things for Voltas, and they tell us that the kind of margin improvement that Voltas is seeking while the volumes are growing, of course, at the cost of the outsourced players, is phenomenal. So what's going to happen is that they have seen the kind of change that's come on the other non-air conditioner market as well when they tied up with Beko, and that also is now 2 million. So it's something where all put together they've mastered the value chain. And the efficiencies that are coming in because of scale will also help them be profitable. Blue Star probably doesn't have that advantage because it's not such a strong retail brand. It's still dependent a lot on the institutional market. But my sense is that Voltas at this level also will probably give you some comfortable growth, given the fact that its infrastructure unit also has started performing, and especially in the Middle East. So you've got good times ahead, a very strong addressable market. The demand is good enough for you to push better prices, and this time around the raw material impact has been fairly benign. So that's where I would believe the Q4 numbers not only look impressive on volumes, but subsequently the margins will also start kind of showing some sort of a strength.
Prakash, very briefly, IIFL, and I've discussed this in the past, after it halved basically from the highs. On Friday, it ended, I think, about 10-13% higher, back above 400. Any thoughts here?
So, Prashant, I think it's probably, people are penciling in the fact that whatever damage had to be done is probably in, and the core business on the capital market side would probably make up for all these debacles that you had on the lending side. But it's a very simple thing that when businesses get impaired with something which is structurally deficient, I normally believe that it takes time for things to kind of come up again. It could be a bounce, which is just because this was overdone. But I wouldn't read too much into it in terms of a turnaround or a revival that's already underway.